Hey there, creatures, and welcome to Encounter This, a podcast exploration of the creatures from Dungeons & Dragons and the lore that surrounds them.
Oh, hello there, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Encounter This.
I was 100% sure you were going to do some sort of mime in a box thing there.
I am Freeman, Rotbite Eyston, as you'd expect, here with my cohort, James Red Knight Kid, to cover the first in a series of episodes around the Golem. I'm having fun with the video now.
It's really chewing up the scenery.
We are doing a semi impromptu suite here via request, which we have dubbed Golember. After a little bit of deliberation. James, why don't you tell us more about that?
So this so recently I did a charity stream, and one of the prizes for the charity stream was our $10 tier on Patreon, essentially, which is get to choose a creature. So the person who won wasn't a listener before, but has since aggressively binged our back catalog in a way that is just wonderful and disheartening. That you can't find better stuff out there to listen to. But we do really appreciate you. So a big shout out to Tekale, and I've been given permission to say his full name. So it's Alexandre Tekale Larocque. They're another fellow Canadian. They are from the Quebec, and based on how much we shit on Quebec, it's fantastic that he still enjoys our stuff. So
seriously, all of the French jokes, and they're still on board.
So big thank you for Tekale for not only supporting the charity. It was an LGBTQ plus charity stream, but for choosing one of my favorite creatures in all of not only D&D but history. I love these creatures. Yeah. I have gone out of my way on several occasions to try and make a wizard whose whole thing is to make golems. And
as soon as James told me this was the selected creature, I was like, "Yeah, you're covering that, right?"
Yeah,
I know this is your domain. Yeah,
yeah. And I've also learned quite a bit in this episode, even in writing this. So there's some new D&D lore that I'm just enthralled with. That cool. We're not going to get into today, but if you go to our blog, you will see our show notes, and on our show notes there are all these little links and stuff you can go to. But the Red Knight is one of my new favorite beings in D&D 5e. I think they're so fucking cool.
Okay, I know nothing about that, so that's exciting.
Me either.
Always good to have a positive on the 5e train for us. Super fun. Okay, and anyone want to follow along in some capacity, they can reference the books, Monster Manual, of course, and Fitzbin's Treasury of Dragons, which has been called out recently. In fact, I think we need to take a moment here real quick to anyone listening to let them know that if we go back to our Hydra episode, we've actually added some more content to the end of the episode because I was so brutally called out about missing the Draco Hydra, and I promise you it's really funny and properly angry content, so it's totally worth a re-listen, or just get in there and fast forward, get to the end.
Yeah, it is something else, that's for sure.
Yeah. My inner curmudgeon really came out in that one. So
no jokes there, listeners. That's an actual fact.
Yep.
But it was a fun little tag on, and I played with some sound effects a little bit there, so it was fun for me.
Sweet. So totally worth it, and we will be going forward, making sure we're covering Monsters of the Multiverse and Fitzbin's Treasury of Dragons in our research, as it were. Because
And
we're
a big
not.
thank you to our lovely Patreons for allowing us to be able to purchase those. We do
Yes.
have legit copies of those books, and we intend to use them almost starting today, but
Yeah,
I guess a little bit.
within Golember at least.
Yeah, yeah. So a quick disclaimer: there are like 30 types of golems in
Yeah.
the D&D universe, so we're going to mostly stick with the 5e stuff, which we'll get into as we go. There are a few 5es that we are going to omit for reasons that I hope are obvious. They're from Adventure Pass.
Okay.
Specifically, we will be omitting Crystal Golem, Canopic Golem, the Lightning Golem, and the Snow Golem. So those all are from specific Adventure Pass, and half of them aren't the Forgotten Realms. The Lightning is from Candlekeep, as is the Glasswork. It's also from Crystal Keep, and the Snow Golem is from Rime of the Frostmaiden. So we're just gonna omit those. If you want to see a whole list of all the golems throughout the editions that I could find, there's a fun little chart very similar to Mephits that will also be posted on that blog.
Are we also also glossing over them in the stat block episode? We're not going to bother covering them.
I think we're gonna. I think we're gonna. We might cover some of them depending on how long those stat blocks get. But you know, like an iron golem is a hell of a creature, as is a stone golem. So, if I think we're encroaching on that hour mark or about 4 pages, I think we'll probably skip them. But there's a possibility we'll tag in things like the snow golem and the glasswork. I think are probably the two most interesting.
Hopefully, we'll at least touch on the most glaring differences as opposed to covering a full. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, so like,
if
assuming
there are some.
Yeah, we'll get into that as things go up. But today we're just going to be covering the Dungeons and Dragons lore as we're wont to do with these impromptu suites. So this will be broken up into 3 parts: the D&D lore, the IRL lore, and then stat blocks and homebrew, kind of like we do. So, as you might expect, golems are magically created creatures. Who knew?
Who'd have thunk?
They are mindless and emotionless for the most part. And they only really know how to fulfill the commands of their creators. So typically they are created by a wizard or cleric and can use, and those creators can use simple commands to control the creature as long as they're within 60 feet. This creation process in general involves a spirit from the plane of earth bound into a vessel against its will.
Oh, I actually wasn't expecting that, but okay.
Yeah. So there's, as always, there's going to be some slight variation between the editions. So we have some golems that we'll talk about today where we actually know how to create them, and others are kind of nebulous and what have you. But
that's fun.
Yeah, and some, when we get to the stat block episode, that will be important. There is a mechanic for that spirit being released from the golem. So I wanted to make sure I included it here, even though I don't think I ever touch on it again.
Okay.
And when a golem is made of an expensive material such as adamantine or mithril, it's usually made of a cheaper version of a material such as iron, and then polymorphed using the wish spell.
Oh,
yeah.
That's kind of cool, actually. But doesn't the wish spell take like a whole handful of diamonds?
I guess it's not a cheap spell. Yeah. It's not, as we'll see. So I actually have the cost in 5e to create these golems. But we'll get into that. So like that's your general primer on golems. That's really it. They're not complicated creatures, and they're not particularly interesting over like as an overview. Okay. So next up, we have a couple of notable users of golems, not golems themselves. Specifically from the Forgotten Realms pantheon: Azus, Gond, Ogma, and Thoth use all kinds of golems. They're partial to using them. But when we get into some of the other pantheons, we get into like more specific stuff. Love using golems. The first one is Glengeddon Silverbeard, who's the dwarven exarch of battle and honor. Big fan of stone golems. There's a link to his Forgotten Realms page in the list. All of these characters is a link to their Forgotten Realms page if you guys want to go deeper. The next is Flandal Steelskin, a gnome deity of mining and smithing. They're a big fan of iron golems. The next is Nethys, Mulharoond, demigod of death, who had a penchant for gem golems.
Okay.
Yeah. Velsharoon, the patron saint of liches and the demigod of necromancy. Obviously enjoyed flesh golems.
Enjoyed being the operative word.
Yeah. Another really cool character from the novels is this elf wizard called Etheric, who's a wizard bent on destroying all drow. Like his whole thing was he's going to clear the Underdark of drow and just genocide these creatures, which is not typically a life goal that you associate with these noble, haughty elves.
Right.
This guy, crazy. So what he did in his laboratory is he would flay drow and keep their skin in order to build a drow only flesh golem.
Damn, that's fucked up. That's right in the vein of like, I don't know if anyone listening has ever gone down the train of flesh warping in Pathfinder, but the drow are quite famous for themselves and doing it to themselves. In fact, so that's just reminds me of that a little bit.
Yeah, really neat. And again, all linked in the show notes on our website. And our final one is that character I'm newly enthralled with called the Red Knight. Nobody knows their identity. The only thing we know about them is that they are female and they are an exarch of battle. So they are just this patron saint of war and warfare. And instead of using stone golems like slaves to carry out their tactics, they would use them as these giant chess pieces to enact a battle and help them get a better idea of a battle strategy while these stone golems fought each other.
Do we know why they're called the Red Knight?
They wear a crimson shining suit of armor.
Nice.
Yeah,
what a way to get a name.
Yeah. Yeah, and they keep their identity secret because they fear that if anybody finds it out, their tactics will no longer be valid.
If I were to like label you as a hero based on your attire, it would be the Black Peasant.
that's pretty fair.
All black, simple clothing.
Yeah. My style these days is relaxed grandpa.
If anything, you're lucky he's not wearing a robe right now.
It's true. You can see my grandpa sweater in our last episode. But yeah, I fell in love with this character. Their holy symbol is a rook, or is a knight, like this red knight, from a chess piece, and they are known as the Grand Master of the Lance Board, which is the D&D parlance for chess, or the Lady of Strategy. Just really neat lore, and I'm really looking forward to digging further into the Faith of Faerun, which is a 2nd edition campaign. But I want to know more. Right. So that is going to bring us directly into little bits and pieces about each one of the 5e appearing golems. Each one is broken down into 3 categories: appearance, creation, and manual. So in D&D 5e, there is an item that exists called Manual of Golems. So you can have one of 4 different manuals, and they tell you and show you the process for creating a golem of that variety. So that's why we have very specific instructions in 5e.
That's cool.
Yeah, a really neat item. It's like 16th level or something like that.
I'm already wishing we had that for the homunculus. As
Fair.
opposed to drowning bats in milk.
One seems a little more humane. Yeah. Okay. So first up, we're going to take a look at this guy right here. This is the Flesh Golem.
He's real pretty.
So, real pretty. They are a ghoulish horror assembled from the body parts of various creatures, usually human, not always, stitched and bolted together into a new and bigger form, and they usually have a lingering smell of decay to the point where it is nearly impossible to track these things because they just smell so rancid.
I will call him Frank.
Shots fired.
After our good friend Frank.
Okay.
And definitely not Frankenstein.
Okay. They stand about 2.4 meters tall. I don't know how to come back from that.
No. Just keep going. Just keep going.
Or 8 feet tall. And 230 kilograms, or about 500 pounds, which is around the weight of a pygmy hippo, which I didn't know was a real animal.
Okay. That's a pygmy hippo. It still seems like a big animal to me, so it's amazing.
They're not small.
Yeah.
And they move and walk very stiffly because they have stitched together body parts in different stages of necrosis. They're unable to speak, but they can produce a hoarse roar just by forcing air over whatever vocal cords they've been given.
Okay. And perhaps through the seams and stitches along their body as well.
I guess it's possible they act as a wind tunnel. It just whistles every time it breathes in. This is fun. I didn't notice this in the art before, but if you look at its front-facing foot, it's actually a hand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could see it, I guess. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's sufficiently creepy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then we'll dig into the creation. So this is creation outside of 5th edition. So if it exists, it's here because I did the flesh golem first because it's so good. So the body parts have to be collected from at least 6 different corpses, though sometimes more were needed. One was the head, one is the head and brain, one is the torso, and then the last 4 are each arm and leg have to come from a separate torso.
Oh.
They could not be too badly decayed, and the use of special unguents and bindings costing approximately 500 gold pieces were needed to keep the pieces together. So they're like gluing and zap strapping it as they're trying to bind this spirit into it.
God.
And it requires a knowledge of medicine, surgery, or leatherworking.
One of the 3. Definitely not a combo of the 3. Just one
it's medicine and surgery or leatherworking.
Oh, okay.
So you need the anatomy, but you don't really have to know how to put them back together. You can just make a leather apron out of them.
That's amazing.
I love this one. It's so good.
Yeah.
The spells required are Animate Dead, Bull Strength, Geas/Quest. Geas? I can never remember how to pronounce that. Geish/Quest.
Irish word. Yeah. Okay.
And Limited Wish.
You needed all of those?
All 4 of those to create a flesh golem.
Damn. That's a lot.
Yeah. So that puts the total cost of construction pre-5th edition around 10,500 gold pieces.
Oh my god.
But if you were to sell it on the open market, their value starts at 20,000.
Whoa. Oh, the economy of D&D.
That's almost a 50% markup. That's crazy.
That's monstrous.
Yeah.
Holy. Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, I mean, I guess that alone makes me want to look at the stat block. You know?
Yeah. No, it's really like I've run
blocks,
almost every.
Please attach these prices to them. So
I'll
talk about that.
Right. So I'm actually going to attach the 5e prices. So we'll get into that now. So if you happen to find or come across a manual of flesh golems, they're very rare items, and it requires a spellcaster with at least 2 5th level spell slots. Okay. It will take you 60 days of constant work with no more than 8 hours of rest per day.
Okay.
50,000 gold pieces for supplies. And once you're finished the ritual, the book is consumed by eldritch flames, and then you sprinkle the ashes on the golem to animate it.
So you get one chance with a rare item.
Yeah. To quote hero of our generation, Marshall Mathers, you get one shot, do not miss your chance to blow.
Oh man. Now, again, I want to compare to the stat block because I'm going to be like, is this even remotely worth it? This is the question I'm asking now.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Yeah. So and again,
Gnarly.
that's for like an average spellcaster. Like I
Yeah.
imagine if you're like a demi lich or something like that, you probably know all the spells required, and you don't need to pay
Right.
the 50,000 for gold pieces. Like
Also,
limited
when
wish is
you're
going to be about half that cost.
something like a demi-lich, you have enough ideally you have enough peons doing your bidding that like the
Right.
cost is of no consequence, right? Like they're effectively the same as the king of a nation who doesn't give a shit. So they could
Yeah.
just say throw the money at it and do it. Um
Or to and
it's
take the
still
body
bonk.
pieces. Like I don't know how much of that 50,000 the resurrectionists take, but it's got to be a solid chunk. Like
Mm,
10% at
crazy.
least.
Do we have a timeline on how long this creature can last just without being destroyed?
Indefinitely.
Definitely. Okay, so
That's the thing about golems is unless you crack their outer shell, the
yeah.
spirit bound within cannot escape. And there is so flesh golem specifically, there are mechanics for when that happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, these
So
stat blocks
yeah.
are really interesting, and the reason I fell in love with these creatures is because the stats are really good, and
Cool.
they're not weak creatures. Like I know you
So
in your head you're thinking CR4, CR5. It is not. I assure
yeah.
you, most of these things are 10 and above.
Cool. Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Golems
And
are
like and
fucking wild.
one would sort of assume too now at that point that that like if there's a chance that if you're talking about kings, like some of these would be carried on from previous rulerships of the kingdom, and then if you're a lich, like you time is of no consequence. So like you're just slowly building an army of these if you need to, and placing them where you need to. So it's like
Yeah.
it's
So
suddenly the cost makes a little more sense, especially if their value is that high and their CR is high enough. So
yeah, so a little bit later we're going to talk about a book called Tome of the Unicorn.
yes, okay,
And remind me about creating armies of golems when we get there.
okay, I'll do my best.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you know what? It's not that interesting, so I won't bury the lead. So this is an old school book.
Mhm.
Its pages contain 23 spells, but its last two pages are said to include a manual for creating stone and iron golems in quantity.
Okay.
So the idea is that if you can get your hand on this one of a kind Tome of the Unicorn, you can just indefinitely create stone and iron golems, like Hellboy and the Golden Army kind of shit.
Because the tome won't burst into flames
Nope.
on the creation.
And apparently, it's really easy to use too. It's just
Yeah.
like this is an evil cursed book. Like again, links to it are in the show notes, so you
Okay.
guys can find it.
Cool.
But next
'Cause-
up, we're going to talk about the least interesting of the golems, in my opinion.
Okay.
The old shit sandwich. The clay golem
Okay.
kind of looks like a shit sandwich.
Yep.
So obviously, they are sculpted from clay. They're about the same bulk and proportions of a humanoid, except their proportions are usually exaggerated and awkward because it's pretty difficult to sculpt
Mhm.
a human being from clay. And they are taller than most humans, but due to its construction and its appearance can vary widely.
Right.
They weigh about a minimum of 275 kilos or 600 pounds, which is an average leopard seal.
Classic.
Classic leopard seal. Uh, let us know if you want me to start including the images of the shit that I'm comparing it to in the slideshow, because I can definitely do that, listeners.
I already can tell you the answer is yes.
Okay. Uh, they're a more fragile golem compared to the other ones because they are made of clay, and clay is pretty fragile.
Yep.
And usually they wore no clothes except for a single piece of metal or stiff leather at the hips for what I assume is modesty purposes.
And every street urchin always ran past and like ripped that off and then carved their initials into its leg or its butt cheek or
Right.
something.
Like I get butt
Just
cheeks,
ran
though
off.
you need those to move, but like dangly bits like man tackle
my
or like
God.
lady bits,
Just
like
don't
or
sculpt it, creators. Like,
that's
just calm
exactly it.
down.
Like you don't have to. Like if you want to, cool. Like I get it. I appreciate the need to
That's
be
the thing.
anatomically
Yeah.
correct, but then don't shame your golem into leather jerkins.
Yeah, and if you are going to give it, at least give it nipple tassels at the same time. So
Right? Yeah. If you're gonna do it, do it.
go all the way. Yeah. No half
Make it
measures
dress
with
like.
golem creation.
I mean, you'd think so, but actually, there is no creation information listed for the clay golem in previous editions, so I
Yeah,
would call that as a half measure.
yeah, fair enough.
But for 5e, there we do have our manual of clay golems. Still pretty much the same shit. The only difference between the golems is the price and the days.
Okay.
So clay golem takes 30 days and costs 65,000 gold pieces.
Okay, so it takes less time, but it's more expensive.
For whatever reason.
Gotcha.
I guess clay costs more than decayed humanoid bodies.
I mean, I guess it's easier to gather quickly humanoid bodies as opposed to enough clay to make up 600 pounds worth.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, that's a fuck.
It depends on location too, right? Location.
Yeah, yeah, and you need a huge kiln to cure it too.
Yeah.
Like
if you're on a remote beach, might be a different story.
yeah, fair enough.
You're in a busy city, also a different story.
Location.
The motto of golem making.
And the restaurant industry. Two things in common. Location, and cover your shame.
Yeah.
All right. Up next is the stone golem. They are sculpted from a single piece of carefully chiseled stone, the most elegant of which can be found as both guardians and art pieces, usually humanoid and bipedal, but they can really take any shape. And it is the creators often stylize them to suit their whimsy. Like, this one seems to be a little bit more Maztica inspired, but you wouldn't find a stone golem that looks like that from the Icewind Dale.
Yeah, I was about to
different.
say, like, it's a cool piece of art, but also just feels like 90s cartoony to me at the same time, which makes me take it very seriously.
I am 100% sure this is just a concept art for that one scene in the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider movie.
Yeah. It's fine, but it's whatever. It's just not intimidating.
They almost never have clothes or weapons. And they average about 2.7 meters or 9 feet tall, and they weigh around 910 kilos.
Okay.
Which is about a camel.
Is that camel packed and full of water or not?
Average.
Touche. This is too fun.
I mean, it's getting what he paid for.
Yep.
The cost is not set because stone costs different places, but it's speculated to be around 60,000 gold pieces.
Location. Oh, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
The process of sculpting takes nearly 2 months, and skilled laborers are required to chisel out the golem. The spells required are Geish, Polymorph Any Object, Slow, and Proper Wish. Okay. And spellcasters should be 16th level or higher before even attempting.
Oof. Okay.
That being said, the way to get around that is that Tome of the Unicorn, which I mentioned earlier, which has a manual for easily creating these things in bulk.
Cool.
According to the 5e lore, in the manual of the Stone Golem, it takes 90 days and costs 80,000 pieces.
Okay, so long ass time, big price. A lot of work.
Yeah, and you would still need a solid crafter, right? Like,
yep.
imagine trying to make 2 or 3 of these things without wanting it to get out. You would have to constantly find and murder good crafters.
Seriously. It does make me wonder too, like, do like the joint parts need to be crafted separately, or is it one stone piece that you magically, forced to be able to like move at the joints?
It
You
is
know?
one stone piece that's
Okay.
magically forced to move.
Crazy.
It's
Yeah.
it's like the clay golem. I know I said giant kiln in jest, but they're not actually cured. Like in the artwork,
Mhm.
you can see
Yeah.
listeners, if you're following along at home or watching the video, you can see little drips of clay just
Yeah.
falling off this thing because it's not cured. Think Clayface from Batman the Animated Series as opposed to like an
Mhm.
actual like wood fired pot.
Right. Uh, yeah, and the stone, like, I mean, you don't have a choice. You're not making it out of magma, right? So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, you have to, yeah. Okay, all right, all right.
but
Lots of
speaking of
magic
magma,
required.
yeah, and other hot things. Big boy Iron Golem is next on the list. These things are absolute fucking tanks. They're
That's a cool
usually
image.
built. Yeah, it's really neat. They're usually built to resemble suits of armor, but they can be again stylized to suit their creator. Though their features are usually smooth, and that the mechanical reason behind that is the same as why you have large smooth pieces in actual suits of armor. So there's nowhere for a blade to hook into. Like you
Right.
can't
Oh,
just
okay.
your blade will just ideally roll off these large smooth
Right.
surfaces.
Yeah. There's no chink in the armor because it's all armor.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah. And they stand 3.7 meters or 12 feet tall, and they weigh about 2,300 kilograms or 5,000 pounds. So I know we do this bit where I find shit that kind of weighs that much, but this was very difficult. So forgive me, listeners. I couldn't find a single object that weighs 5,000 pounds, but it's about the weight of 2 Honda Civics. And I guess about
Surely
the
it's
length of 2 Honda Civics as well.
yeah. And surely it's like, one and a half of another car somewhere.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, super cool. I like it. I'm into
Yeah.
it.
And they're used to guard valuable locations or items. These are not fucking around golems. Like these are beasts. And when we get to the stat block is beast. There's a reason you've never faced an iron golem. Let's put it that way.
Makes me honestly, the old one of the I've gone through golems in Pathfinder Second Edition, just on my own time, and it's amazing how where they show up and the variations and how they work. But I do recall the artwork for the Iron Golem on that one. It is intensely intimidating.
Okay, good.
So, it's really cool, and it's such a high CR.
Yeah. So to make these things in previous editions, it requires 2,300 kilos of iron, just raw fucking iron, which alone is worth about 80,000 gold pieces.
Okay.
It also requires an ornate sword that can be magical, but doesn't have to be. It just has to be beautiful. And
Okay.
alchemical tinctures. We'll get into that when we get to the stat block, the alchemical tinctures, because they are represented, which is just
Cool.
this. It takes about 3 months and needs to be done by an intensely skilled ironsmith.
Mhm.
And before animating one of these, spellcasters should at least be 18th level before even.
Oh man.
Yeah. So the spells required are Cloud Kill, Gaish, Polymorph any object, and Wish again. So
Oh
very, very
man.
fucking expensive.
Yep.
Or to bypass all that shit, the Tome of the Unicorn, which I believe only existed in second edition, but fuck it, put it in your game.
Put it in.
Crush it out, break things.
Amazing.
The Manual of the Iron Golems is the same general as the rest of them, except it takes 120 days and 100,000 gold pieces. Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah.
That's 3 months of the year, bud. 4 months of the year. Sorry, like holy crap,
Just gone. Like
Yeah.
imagine having to pay the
Oh.
most skilled ironsmith in your region for 3 months of straight work.
Long.
No wonder it costs 100K. And usually, I would imagine you listeners at home would think that that's all they're going to cover. You know what? Fuck it. All 4 golems of the monster manual are done. We are good. And I would love to agree with you because this next one is absolute trash. This, dear listeners, this monstrosity. For those of you listening to the audio show, it looks like a dragon skeleton duct taped together by Red Green if you're Canadian. If you're not, like your uncle who's bad at fixing things but thinks they're good at fixing things.
AKA Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And I'm gonna crack a beer on this one.
Smart.
Because I feel like it's just gonna follow suit with my anger on the Draco Hydra.
Yeah, so we're not actually gonna really take a break today. We're just gonna keep powering through.
We're just
I think.
going, yeah.
So this is it. This comes from Fitzband. Somehow this skeletal dragon is classified as a golem for whatever reason. It's literally stitched together with duct tape. But as written, it is made from bones or whole skeletons of dragons and some sort of inorganic matter to bind them. Read duct tape.
Yeah.
Somehow, this creature made from bones and duct tape still has a breath weapon. So angry.
Oh.
And they are made 5e creation because I think they exist in one previous edition, but there's nothing, like they don't even have their own page on Forgotten Realms. They are made using the inherent magic that exists within all dragons. Each bone is etched with a rune or glyph, allowing the magic to flow freely, whatever the fuck that means. The spells required are Animate Dead, Cause Fear, Geish, and the total sum of producing this monstrosity is about 115,000 gold pieces. It's legitimately electrical tape and mostly dragon bones.
Let's just get a couple things clear here. The reason James is covering this creature at all is because I told him we should. The only reason I told him
we should. It's called the Golem.
The listeners called me out. And listeners who are listening, and I'm sure most of you will find this funny, but let's be really clear. The bar is set real low for this Fizbin's Treasury of Dragons, and we are going to tear it apart, I think, from now on.
I actually read most of it, like just skimmed through it. And other than the lore, the written lore is really cool. It gets real fancy with dragons, which I don't care about dragons.
Yeah.
But it gets like real weird, like sunshine and rainbows about dragons for no reason at all. Like it gets like Harry Potter level magic about dragons, but the written lore is pretty good. The actual creatures so far, the ones that the stat blocks I've actually read, and the ones I've skimmed, 100% trash. Like again, I'm sure this thing would be fine in combat, but it is so fucking boring. It's like they had a quota to fill. Like we need 100 dragon adjacent creatures for this dragon adjacent book. For no reason.
I know for a fact there's some sort of dragon blood ooze in that book.
That actually looks pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, does it? Okay.
It's like literally the page like right around this one. Yeah. I made sure I looked at that one.
I've been shopping the idea, and I think I mentioned to James about like, oh, maybe we should dive into this book as a bonus episode to cover, the stat blocks on creatures we've already covered where they've added something. And who knows where that will go. But,
rage and alcoholism. Like I'm gonna need a whole bottle of whiskey here next to me if we're gonna do that shit, because so far not impressed. Fizzban, get your shit together. Calling you out on air, Fizzban, the real person.
God. Quick, we need this new source book. Make it a theme. Go.
That being said, much love to all the people at Wizards. We understand how much work this shit takes. We've created our own creatures and homebrewed it. We know that it's not easy.
We don't envy
but
you.
we also know you don't have
oversight.
to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the fuck?
And that's kind of it for golems. I have a couple of honorable mentions. So there are a few famous golems in the D&D verse. The first is Wilbur, a pig-shaped iron golem belonging to Masson, the monkey mage of Ravensbluff, which is a city in Vesperin, which something we'll almost never touch on. It's in the continent south of Faerun the Vast. Like it's a very, very 2E setting. The next
Wilbur,
is
the pig-shaped iron golem.
Yeah.
It's just real on the nose of that one, eh? Okay.
Yeah. The next one is Minder, an iron golem crew member of Realms Master, which is a Haluran skyship, which I think is some Eberron shit. I don't actually know.
Oh, like the golem itself is a skyship?
No, the golem is a crew member on like this floating ship.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's skyship, that sounds like Eberron. Yeah. Very, very pulpy.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's from the source book is called The Shining South. So I probably should have looked into it more. Second edition source book. So yeah, it's the cover is a boat strapped to a zeppelin fighting a dragon. So that's some real 2E shit right there.
Yep. Amazing.
And the last one, and my favorite one, and by far the most interesting, is a stone golem called Automaton, possessed by a horned devil called Rotbite.
The spelling that you have here for automaton is amazing.
I mean, it's not my spelling. And this horned devil is from what I understand, the overarching villain in a book called Shattered Statue.
Okay.
Which is a 1E adventure. But that sounds awesome.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah, like a horned devil strapped inside of a stone golem, and if it ever gets out, like it's just going to go back to being a fucking horned devil, which are not chill devils.
True enough.
I don't remember the CR, but they're not low.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it for 5e stuff. I did, for those of you viewing at home or following along on our Instagram, come up with this little slideshow here of other golems and some of the ones we touched on through the ages. I definitely didn't go deep, but I found a couple of pictures that I thought were just fantastic. And I thought it would maybe extend the episode a little bit to get us closer to that hour mark. So this one here, this dot matrix Frankenstein looking motherfucker is a flesh golem from 1E, and it is very clear that it is inspired by Mary Shelley's novelization. I said novelization like it's based on the movie. I'm an asshole. I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Shelley.
Oh,
Mary Shelley's
you're out of the will. That's for sure.
Mary Shelley's pulp classic Frankenstein, very clearly modeled after the monster that Victor makes. I'm going to try and do these from memory. So this is from second edition, the one on closest to us. This like pockmarked hair looking fellow is a flesh golem. And there's a terracotta warrior looking thing, and that is a clay golem from second edition. I thought that was a really cool addition. I love the I really hope you get into terracotta warriors in next episode, because they're essentially just Chinese golems. They're so cool.
Yeah.
Next up is this guy. This is also from second edition, I believe. This is a hammer golem. This is specifically of dwarven crafting, and is one of the dwarves we talked about earlier, Clandegan Silverbeard. Big fan of these hammer golems.
Right. Yeah.
This cool one right here is also from second edition. This is a stained glass golem.
That's super fun.
Yeah, I love this one. This art is what inspired me to do this little section here. So for the audio podcast, it's this really beautiful picture. Like the colors pop, the building fades into the background of this stained glass and this golden warrior like peeling itself out of the arc. Like it's just it's gorgeous. I'm really excited to throw this one up
It's
on
cool.
our Instagram.
It's reminding me of something I saw not that long ago, like on Reddit or something, and it was like praising early CGI in a film where there was like a stained glass warrior that comes out of the wall, and it's like pretty campy, but for the time, like way better than the other films. Cannot for the life of me remember what it was, but I watched the clip and I was like, this is actually not terrible. I don't know, like a Three Musketeers or I don't know, I can't remember, but it was cool, and it was like, yeah, it was a stained glass warrior. It was like 3D but 2D at the same time, and like it totally freaked out the whole audience and stuff. And it was really neat. Yeah, it
Awesome.
reminds me of that. Really, really cool.
Well, if you find out, let me know because I wanna
Yeah.
fucking watch that movie, and we will definitely link it in the show notes. Up next, this is just a gorgeous piece of art. This is that adamantine golem we were talking about earlier from third edition. It's just this fucking brick shithouse made of the hardest metal in the D&D universe that's been like adorned with these golden tribal tattoos.
Awesome. That is one of the coolest artworks we have ever had. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Oh man, it's got like it's, I don't know. Got like a Greek or Roman motif kind of thing, but also doesn't feel like it fits there at the same time. That's awesome.
I'm pretty confident this is based off the Colossus of Rhodes or Order of the Colossus in Nero. So those larger statues, like that kind of ornate detail, like
Super
especially
cool.
the trim around the collar, like it's just beautiful.
Yeah, like the around the collar looks like kind of like swinging, like sort of not quite scythe blades, but like, you know, these blades that you would see in like classic like dungeon traps. And then around the
Yeah,
waist, they're almost like fleur de lis, like a half fleur de lis, or the top end of
yeah.
it. Yeah, that's super cool. That's awesome. That's awesome.
This one is the brain golem from third edition, and it is just a giant fucking brain that looks like it has a tongue. Like this is horrifying. This probably won't hit the gram, but this should be our first ever video release on YouTube. So you can head over to YouTube
What
and
the
check it out.
hell is that? that is that is a weird looking creature. But what's really curious is what it's standing in front of, which is a giant lagged foot of another creature. And I don't know what that
It's
is.
like it's yeah. So it's like an assembly of golems. One is the fire
Okay.
golem. I don't remember what they
Okay.
are, but this is the brain golem picture from Forgotten Realms.
Okay. So gnarly. That's some like alien weird sci-fi shit.
Speaking of alien weird sci-fi shit, this is a fuck. I actually have to look this one up because I can't remember. This is I don't even know how to describe this. This is called shade steel. This is a shade steel.
Shade steel golem.
Yeah, so they're
Uh
made from a mineral specifically found in the plane of shadow, and they are used as a guardian, like guardians to guard the undead. So this thing, if any of you have ever seen Necrons from 40K, it pretty much looks like that. It's got these backward bend knees. Its head is actually on its tail. It's floating above its torso.
oh, did not see that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I
It's
had to look at
super
this image like
creepy.
3 or 4 times, and I
Yeah.
saw that, and it's just it. This is one of the most alien looking bipedal designs I've ever seen. Just
Yeah.
huge props to 3E for this. Like it's just
Uh,
it's perfect.
I mean, and just by the posture alone, it almost doesn't look like it's jumping. It kind of looks like it's floating.
It's just floating. Yeah,
Yeah. Which is pretty creepy. Oh, damn.
yeah.
Cool piece of
It's
art. It is very left field though. Like that is honestly territory aesthetically that I generally avoid if you're playing. Like I'm into that shit in the
Right.
fantasy
No,
setting. But
I'm into this too, but not
Okay.
in like a fantasy setting. Like if we ran into
Right.
this shit in Starfinder, I would be here for it.
Right. Totally. Yeah. But
But that's because
not
of yeah.
Forgotten Realms,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
Starfinder
Yeah.
is a science fantasy game, and I wanted to play
Yeah.
a science fiction game, and
Right.
that's where those boundaries
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
right back. Like that's why I like Star Wars, but I don't love Star Wars because it's
Mhm.
science fantasy. I like
Right.
science fiction. You know, I'd rather
That's
watch
fair.
Star Trek or like The Abyss, like that kind of shit.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
Cool art.
And this also beautiful art. This is the Sand Golem from 3rd edition. Just gorgeous. Again, just this beautiful piece
Yeah.
of art. Like
Super cool.
he's like fading into the background. It's exactly what you think of when you think of a sand person, listener. Like I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
this exact shot was from Spider-Man 3, the bad one with Tobey
Yeah.
Maguire and
Yeah.
I'm gonna forget his name. I'm sorry, but
Topher
the
Grace.
guy. No, not Topher
And
Grace. The guy who
Thomas
played
Hayden Church.
Sandman, Thomas Hayden Church. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you think it looks like. This one will be on the gram because I find it so peaceful. Like it's not unnerving to me. Like I just find it. I think it's a beautiful piece of art. Like I would have this hanging on my wall, you know, and like if that was the first thing I saw every morning, I don't think I'd be upset.
It's unnerving in the sense that like, oh, if you're in a desert, like you look at that and you see how it's forming from the sand around you and you go, that creature when it disappears could be anywhere, and that's creepy. That idea is creepy. But then you're kind of like, oh, there's this sort of naturalistic approach to it where it's like, okay, it's in its home terrain. It doesn't feel as golem-esque. It feels like it belongs there, you know?
Yeah,
Which is kind of cool.
I think it kind of reminds me of Swamp Thing from DC Comics. It looks like it's very live and let live. Like don't fuck with the desert and you'll be fine.
Right. Yeah. Right. And you know what? It makes you think of, speaking of Starfinder, which is fun that you brought it up. Like, but there was monsters and ways to play even as a PC where you were built around nanotechnology, and so you could be like a nanomorph like creature essentially. So you're not you're a whole, but made of an unbelievably individual, like a huge number of individual pieces, but not necessarily on a microscopic level, right? Like actually tangible,
Right.
like kind of seeable level. And so it's like this weird middle ground. And that's exactly what a sand golem kind of would be, right? It's like, what are the advantages of being built of an unbelievable amount of small particles that you could still sort of like hold in your hand? That's just that's like a weird way to like, okay, how can we do this nanotechnology idea, but implement it into a fantasy setting seamlessly? Sand.
Yeah. Yeah, the only issue I have with this particular golem is that lore as written, they are vessels for a spirit from the earth realm. If it turns into a bunch of sand, it is no longer a vessel unless it's bound to the grains of sand individually, which seems like kind of a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But
This depends on how you define the magic that forms it, right? It's like, is it this batch of sand, or is it, you know, a minimum amount of sand as long as there's sand around, you know?
right.
Depends on how you define that.
And you know, this is such an interesting creature, and again, beautiful piece of art that in my mind, I don't run up against that little detail. I just wanted to point it out because there will be listeners who, you know, oh, you know, I can't, you know, it's got to be a vessel. Like it's just sand floating off of it, and it's coming out of the sand. It's not actually just made of sand crystals.
Right.
Which, you know, that's cool too. It's your house, man. Man in the gender neutral term.
Don't add us.
You know what? For this one, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. At James. He's ready.
And this is one of the 5e1s that I didn't cover. This is the Crystal Golem from either Witchmount, Witch whatever, or Candlekeep. I can't remember, but I didn't cover this one because it just doesn't look cool.
Okay.
And it doesn't feel like a golem. Like it feels like a crystal rock monster.
It looks like a quick make up a crystal monster for a 90s cartoon again. Like just like quick toss it in there, you know.
Right. This definitely looks like a villain from one of the Starjammers storylines in the X-Men cartoon.
It looks like it would show up in a GI Joe cartoon, like randomly, but without context.
All
or
GI
like
Joe villains were humans, except for the
really?
robots. Yeah, I mean, any hardcore GI Joe fan will tell you that there was obviously the race of Cobra Law from the GI Joe movie, but to most GI
Oh
Joe
yeah,
fans, they don't count.
yeah. Not proper canon. You heard it here first.
What? I mean, technically, the only real continuity is the Marvel Comics line. You can at me about that shit. I'm staring down the barrel of the camera. Only real GI Joe continuity is the Marvel Comics line. Maybe the IDW stuff.
Definitely don't.
Yeah.
I don't know shit.
And you can get directly at me on Instagram.com/encounter.pod. Longtime listeners know I don't do the Twitter. And just nobody does the Facebook. So there we are.
Yep, fuck Facebook.
Yeah. And that's it. Those are all the golems I saw fit to print. And by print, I of course mean present to you, lovely listeners. And we definitely appreciate you putting up with that level of shit, because that was a very unique episode and really heavily deviates from some of our themes.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a lot of fun putting it together.
Yeah, I mean, doing the whole suite thing, we're always in for a turn, right? Like it's not always going to be, on point. It's always a bit of a derivation. So,
yep, it's our show. We can do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah, at us.
Well, if you do want to add us, you can shoot us off an email at info@encounterthis.ca. You can always check out our home on the web, unchartednorth.com or ca. But if you still go to encounterthis.ca, it will bring you directly to our blog posts. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/encounterpod, Twitter, same thing, Instagram at encounter.pod. And if all goes according to plan, you will be able to find this video, possibly 2 others, and every other episode from here on out up on the YouTubes. I don't have the URL handy, but if I'm as smart as I think I am, it's youtube.com/encounterpod. May not be. If you want to support us, you can find us on patreon.com/unchartednorth, where you can support both of our endeavors. What are you doing with your hands?
That's a UN.
God. I'm going to get you a whiteboard for your birthday. We are a loving and humble part of the Uncharted North Network, along with our sister actual play podcast, Stemming the Tide, where we play through a Pathfinder 2e adventure path run by this fool over here. I'm still learning the new social spiel because I haven't written it down, and I'm doing this all by memory, listeners, so I apologize profusely if I got any of this wrong. But worst case scenario, you can go to unchartednorth.com/links, and that will link you to everything. To our store, our Patreon, our Discord, anything and everything. And the Discord is now absolutely free. The Patreon tiers have not changed, but some new shit has been added. I don't remember what it is, so if Freeman wants to fill in, he's more than welcome. So our $5 tier definitely hasn't changed. So for $5 a month, you will still get that handwritten thank you letter, and I believe some goodies will be included.
Oh yeah. You'll get a
pins and stickers.
Sweet Uncharted North pin when available. We have a little supply right now, and the $10 tier will get you the creature of choice as usual. But also, God, it's something else. I don't remember.
Is it a discount to our merch store?
I think it's a discount to the merch store, yeah, which we are reestablishing right now and reworking, very much so. And if you get to the $15 tier, you get a couple cool things, like you get all of that, but also you can help us write an exposition for Encounter This, perhaps even voice part on that if you want to. And we also will work with you hand in hand in creating an NPC for whatever production we're working on at the time, which we've done one of so far, which has been really fun.
I gotta double check your math. I don't think that's a $15 tier, is it?
I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's in there.
$15?
There's usually
we need to talk about that shit off air.
It's kind of a one-time deal, and there's a cap. There's a cap on it for the moment of how many people can subscribe to that. and also a minimum of how many months to get in there. But yeah, like to work hand in hand and sort of work together and create something for the airwaves, with the GMs at Uncharted North, which is fun. All things obviously up up for changes and stuff as we go, as we progress and grow larger. But yeah, big. The idea is for us to have an initiative and a foot forward to like include our listeners into our creative progress.
Oh, okay. I think you might be talking about US. So our Canadian prices are all kinds of fucked.
Oh yeah. You mostly can assume these are US prices. Yeah, which has been a bit of a crossover between our with our
right.
Uncharted North bringing in Encounter this.
Right, so that's 22 Canadian, and that $10 tier is 14.50 Canadian. The $5 tier is 7.50 Canadian, right. And that's mostly just to cover processing fees on the platform because it is getting more and more expensive as they get more and more steam. And
very much.
New Canadian regulations have come down in the fact that we have to pay GST on these things. So,
yay!
Taxes.
Great, not being American. What?
Okay. We're going to leave you there because it is. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. If you liked it and you were watching this on YouTube, smash that like button, hit the subscribe to be notified whenever new episodes come. Stole that outro from Will Wolf. Big thank you to that guy. He's fantastic. And we'll see you in 2 weeks on December 15th for Freeman's part of the Golem. And I'm going to cut away before this gets weirder. Thanks, listeners. Jesus Christ.